Hello, friends. Let's take a look at how we can understand the mind according to Lorik and Vajrayana Mahamudra. In emptiness. In the three types of minds. So this is an explanation of the nature and functions of the mind. There's another book that is a newer version of this one. Then why am I going back to this one? This one has some things that the newer version seems to have omitted. Let's see. So the newer version is called How to Understand the Mind by Geshe Kelsang Gyatso. Nice picture of Geshe Kelsang Gyatso. This one's subtitled The Nature and Power of the Mind. This one subtitled An Explanation of the Nature and Functions of the Mind. Interesting. So this is interesting to note the differences. One difference is that this one's a little bit smaller in height. This one is thicker. Let's see. Thicker. Right? That means this one has more pages, right? Let's see. Over 400 pages. This one has over 300 pages. This one is 100 pages longer. It went from 300 and some to 400 and some. Why is that? This one added a form of the Lamrim. Yes. In the back, there's a Lamrim. Meditation. So, let's see, meditation. So this was only actually maybe 40 pages only. 255. There's the glossary. Essence of Good Fortune. $356. Oh no, Liberating Prayer. Those are sadhanas. The condensed meaning of the text. It's actually very small. But very powerful. So, from pages 255 to 315. 250 to 310. It's only 60 pages. They added 60 pages of a form of Lamrim. I'll tell you why. So that means that the lorig part of the book is from it ends at 250 something, and then the lorig begins about here, page 13 to 253. That's 240 pages. Understanding the Mind has a subtitle, just like it is here, an explanation of the nature and functions of the mind, but it includes the word lorik, an explanation of the nature and functions of the mind. Also, they're both from TARPA Publications, but this one was first published in 1993 and then reset in 1997. This one, instead of 93, well, there's something written in 2013. But here it says, first published as Understanding the Mind in 1993. Then the second edition 97, then the third edition 2002, and reprinted in 2004, reset 2007, 2010, 2013. First edition was substantially revised and published as How to Understand the Mind in 2014. So let's look at the contents. The new version has a part 1, a part 2, and a meditation. See, you can tell that the meditation is of a Lamrim version because there's the meditation of a person of initial scope, and meditation of a person of a middling scope, and meditation of a person of a great scope. And this book offers an appendix with the condensed meaning of the text in the sadhanas, and glossary, and by bibliography, and the study programs. Okay, now let's look at the contents of this one. Then we will go back to look at the contents again of the newer edition. So remember, this one's 100 pages shorter. So it has part 1, part 2. So it's only got 2 parts. And then it finishes off with the condensed meaning of the text and the essence of good fortune, bibliography, and study programs. Oh, and a glossary. So this one's got 2 parts. Wow, whereas this one's got, how many parts did I say? Part 1, part 2. No, this one's also got 2 parts. So, did this one grow a bit? Could have. Okay, let's look at how it grew a little bit in that sense. Let's look at the titles of the parts, or the chapters. So the new version has "What is our mind?" This one has "Object possessors." What? Okay, this one has "How the mind is able to move." This one has "Conceptual and non-conceptual minds." This one has "The gross, subtle, and very subtle minds." This one has "Sense and mental awareness." This one has "Primary minds and mental factors." This one has "Direct perceivers." This one has the 5 all accompanying mental factors. This one has "Inferential cognizers." This one has the 5 object ascertaining mental factors. This one has recognizers. This one has the 11 virtuous mental factors. This one has correct beliefs. This one has virtue, non-virtue, and delusion. This one has non-ascertaining perceivers. The 6 root delusions. This one has doubts. This one has doubts, wrong awarenesses. The 20 secondary delusions. The 4 changeable mental factors. This one has valid, valid and non-valid cognizers. So part 1, types of minds. Part 2, primary minds and mental factors. So what did they do? They put this at the end. They reorganized it. So that means part 2 is actually part 1 in this book. So it's the object possessors, Let's see. Here it is. Sense and mental awarenesses, direct perceivers. Sense and mental awarenesses, direct perceivers. Subsequent cognizers. Here it's called inferential cognizers. Recognizers, correct beliefs. Correct beliefs. Non-ascertaining perceivers. Non-ascertaining perceivers. Doubts. Wrong awareness is valid. Oh. This one says non-diluted doubts. Non-diluted doubts. But this one just has doubts. Valid and non-valid cognition. So basically, they took part 1 and put it after part 1. What? Oh, here. So part 1 in this book has become part 2 in the newer book. And then, so that means that part 2 in the old book was moved over to become part 1 in the new book, right? Interesting. Primary minds and mental factors. Primary minds, the 5 all-accompanying mental factors, the 11 virtuous mental factors, the virtue, non-virtue, and delusion, the 6 root delusions. How the mind is able to move, the primary minds and mental factors, the 5 all-accompanying mental factors, the 5 object ascertaining mental factors, the 11 virtues, virtue, non-virtue, and delusion, the 6 root delusions, the 20 secondary delusions, which is over here, right? The 4 changeable mental factors. Okay, so that means that part 2 was moved to become part 1, but they also added what is our mind, how the mind is able to move the gross, subtle, and very subtle minds. So these are additions. Then there's this thing called object possessors. This item is not in the new version. It was removed. Object possessors. But let's now go over what is our mind, how the mind is able to move, the gross, subtle, and very subtle minds. Let's see. But before that, let's read what he had to say as a introduction. This is powerful. We should know that recent years, our understanding and control of the external world have increased considerably. As a result, we have witnessed remarkable material progress, but there has not been a corresponding increase in human happiness. There is no less suffering in the world today, and there is no fewer problems. Indeed, it might be said that there are now more problems and greater unhappiness than ever before. This shows that the cause of happiness and the solution to our problems do not lie in knowledge or control of the external world. Happiness and suffering are feelings. parts of our mind, and so their main causes are not to be found outside the mind. So if we really want to be truly happy and free from suffering, we must improve our understanding of the mind. So that's why the title is How to Understand the Mind. And let's look at what is our mind. We often say, my mind. But if someone were to ask us, what is your mind? We would have no correct answer. This is because we do not understand the nature and function of the mind correctly. Or precisely. The nature of the mind is clarity, which means it is something that is empty like space, always lacking form, shape, and color. The mind is not actual space because produced space possesses shape and color. During the day, it can be light, and during the night, it can be dark. But mind never possesses shape and color. As I said, the mind is empty, but we should not say the mind is emptiness. What is the difference between empty and emptiness? In Buddhism, emptiness has great meaning. It is the real nature of things and a very profound and meaningful object. If we realize emptiness directly, we will attain permanent liberation from all the sufferings of this life and countless future lives. There is no greater meaning than this. So emptiness is a very meaningful object, but an empty is just empty. It has no special meaning. Therefore, we have to say that the mind is empty, which means it always lacks form, shape, and color. And we have to say that space is empty, which means it lacks obstructive contact. When we say my purse is empty, this means there's no money inside it. Through this, we understand that different empties have different meanings. The function of the mind is to perceive or understand objects. We normally say, I see such and such. This is because our mind sees the object. Because our mind understands things, we say, I understand. So our perception and understanding are functions of our mind. Without mind, we are powerless to perceive and understand objects. Also, one of the main functions of the mind is imputing things. Without names, things cannot exist. A name is imputed by mind thinking. This is this. So things exist only because mind imputes them. Through this, we can understand that everything, including the world, is created by mind. There is no creator other than the mind. This truth is not difficult to understand if we check it carefully. In conclusion, the definition of the mind is something whose nature is empty like space, always lacking form, shape, and color, and whose function is to perceive or understand objects. Through understanding the nature and function of the mind correctly, we can understand that our mind is completely different from our body. This proves that after our death, although our body will cease, the mind will not. The mind leaves the body and goes to the next life like a bird leaving one nest and moving to another. Or, for example, during sleep, when we are dreaming, our body is as if dead, and our mind leaves the body and goes to the dream world, experiencing a dream life. Just a new life. Through contemplating this alone, we can understand clearly the existence of our future lives. Okay. Now, how the mind is able to move. Our mind is like a person who possesses eyes but no legs, and so can see things but cannot move from one place to another by himself. In the same way, our mind can see objects but cannot move from one object to another by itself. It can move from one object to another only through the force of a mount. The mount for the mind is the inner winds. Inner winds are the subtle winds associated with the mind and flow through the channels of the body. It is said that there is nothing quicker than the mind. For example, our mind can reach the moon in an instant by thinking of the moon. But without inner winds, this is impossible. As detailed in explanation about inner winds can be found in Appendix IV of Modern Buddhism. Wow. Interesting. Let's find Modern Buddhism. Inner winds. Let's see if we can find modern. Oh, here it is. Modern Buddhism. Appendix IV, Modern Buddhism. Bibliography, glossary. Oh, appendix what? Appendix. Wow, appendix 8. Quick path to great bliss. Wow. Blissful journey. Wow. Six session yoga. Oh, that's brief. The yoga of Buddha Heruka. So there's a lot of sadhanas in here. Here it is, an explanation of inner winds. The definition of wind is any of the four elements that is light in weight and moving. Winds can be divided into external and internal winds, into gross and subtle winds. Gross external wind is the wind we experience on a windy day. Is the actual wind itself. Subtle external wind is much more difficult to detect. It is the energy that makes plants grow and exists even inside rocks and mountains. It is with the help of subtle winds that plants draw up water, grow new leaves, and so forth. Such winds are the life force of plants. Indeed, some tantric texts, wind is called life or life force. Thus, although it is incorrect to say that plants are alive in the sense of being conjoined with consciousness, you can say that they are alive in this sense. In the sense of a life force. Internal winds are the winds in the continuum of a person that flow through the channels of the body. The main function of internal winds is to move the mind to its object. The function of the mind is to apprehend objects. But without a wind to act as its mount, it cannot move toward or establish a connection with its object. Mind is sometimes likened to a lame person who can see, and wind to a blind person with legs. It is only by operating together with internal winds that minds can function. Okay. So the mind is the lame person who can see, and the internal wind is the blind person with legs. So they work together. And so the mind can do its things that way. So there are many, many different winds flowing through the channels of the body, but all are included within the 5 root winds and 5 branch winds. The 5 root winds are the life-supporting wind, the downward voiding wind, the upward voiding wind, the equal abiding wind, and the pervading wind. Each of the 5 root winds has 6 characteristics by which it can be recognized. Its color is associated Buddha family, an element for which it serves as the support. Its principal seat or fundamental location. Its function. Its direction, how it leaves the nostrils on exhalation. They are summarized on Table 1 of page 282. So the root winds, there's life supporting, downward voiding, upward moving, equally abiding, and pervading. So they're divided into colors: white, yellow, red, green, yellow, pale blue. And they are also divided into Buddha families, where the white is a member of the Akshobhya family, the yellow the Ratnasambhava, the red the Amitabha, the green yellow Amoghasiddhi, and pale blue Vairochana. And they are divided in terms of elements. So the white Akshobhya is water, the yellow Ratnasambhava is earth, the red Amitabha is fire, the green yellow Amoghasiddhi is wind, the pale blue is Vairochana, space. And they're divided into seats where they hang around most of the time. So the life-supporting white Akshobhya water is seated at the heart. The downward voiding yellow Ratnasambhava earth is the 2 lower doors, the anus and the sex organ. And the upward moving red Amitabha fire is at the throat. Interesting. And the equally abiding green yellow Amoghasiddhi wind is at the navel. Green yellow navel. And then the pervading pale blue Vairochana space. It's both at the upper and lower parts of the body. Mainly the 360 joints. Interesting. So what are the functions? So the life supporting at the heart, colored white, of the Buddha family Akshobhya with element water. Its function is to support and maintain life. The downward voiding, the earth, the two lower doors, the anus and the sex organ, is to retain and release urine, feces, semen, blood, etc. The upward moving, which is red, Amitabha fire throat, is to speak, swallow, etc. The equally abiding green yellow Amugasidi wind navel is to cause the inner fire to blaze, to digest food and drink, etc. At the navel. Pervading the pale blue Vairocana space, both upper and lower parts of the body, mainly three signals. It's to enable the body to come and go, to allow movement, lifting and placing. Interesting. Now they have directions. So, life supporting. So from both nostrils, gently downward. Downward voiding from both nostrils, horizontally, heavily forward. And the direction of the upward moving, which is at the throat, from the right nostril, violently upward. Equally abiding from the left nostril, moving to the left and the right from the edge of this nostril. Pervading. This wind does not flow through the nostrils except at the moment of death. Wow. So those are the root winds. So let's go over them again. So the life-supporting wind is called Akshobhya wind because when it is completely purified, it transforms into the nature of Akshobhya. Right now, our life-supporting wind is like seeds of Akshobhya form body, but not Akshobhya himself. The main function of life-supporting wind is to support life by maintaining the connection between body and mind. The stronger the life-supporting wind, the longer we will live. Another function of this wind is to support water element of the body and to cause it to increase. The supporting wind is white in color and its principal location is at the heart. When we exhale, it leaves from both nostrils, flowing gently downward. The downward voiding wind is the seed of Ratnasambhava's form body and is associated with the earth element. It is yellow in color and it functions to release urine, feces, sperm, and menstrual blood. Its principal locations are the anus and the sex organ, and when we exhale, it leaves horizontally from both nostrils, flowing heavily forward. The upward moving wind is the seed of Amitabha's form body and is associated with the fire element. It is red in color, and its function is to enable us to swallow food and drink, and to speak, to cough, and so forth. Its principal location is the throat. When we exhale, it leaves from the right nostril, flowing violently upward. The equal abiding wind is the seed of Amoghasiddhi's foreign body, is associated with the wind element. It is greenish yellow in color, and it functions to cause the inner fire to blaze and to digest food and drink by separating the nutrients from waste matter. Its principal location is the navel, and when we exhale, it leaves the left nostril, moving to the left and the right from the edge of the nostril. The pervading wind is the seed of Vairochana's foreign body and is associated with space element. It's pale blue in color. As its name suggests, it pervades the entire body, particularly the 360 joints. Its function to enable the body to move. Without this wind, we would be completely immobile, like a stone. This wind does not flow through the nostrils, except at the moment of death. Generally speaking, at any one time, one of the winds is flowing more strongly through the nostrils than the other winds. If, for example, life-supporting wind is flowing strong, the other winds, except the pervading wind, are flowing gently. Unless we observe our breath very carefully, it is difficult to notice the different movements of the four winds, but they definitely flow through our nostrils whenever we breathe. The 5 branch winds are the moving wind, the intensely moving wind, the perfectly moving wind, the strongly moving wind, and the definitely moving wind. 5 branch winds are so called because they branch off from the life-supporting wind, which resides in the heart center. The main location of these winds is in the 4 channels spokes of the heart channel wheel, from where they flow through our channels to the 5 colors of the sense powers. Because they function to enable sense awareness to develop, the 5 branch winds are also called the 5 winds of the sense powers. The color of function of each wind are summarized in Table 2. So the moving wind is red to enable eye awareness to move to visual forms. The intensely moving wind is blue to enable ear awareness to move to sound. The perfectly moving wind, yellow, to enable the nose awareness to move to smells. The strongly moving wind, white, to enable the tongue awareness to move to taste. Definitely moving wind, to enable the body awareness to move to tactile objects. The first wind, the moving wind, flows from the heart through the door of the eyes to enable eye awareness to move to its object, visual forms. Without the moving wind, the eye awareness would be powerless to contact visual forms. The reason we cannot see when we are asleep is that the moving wind has withdrawn from the door of the eye sense power back to its seat at the heart. The intensely moving wind flows from the heart to the ears, enabling the ear awareness to move to sounds. The perfectly moving wind flows from the heart to the nostrils, enabling the nose awareness to move to smells. The strongly moving wind flows from the heart to the tongue, enabling the tongue awareness to move to taste. And the definitely moving wind flows from the heart all over the body, enabling the body awareness to move to tactile objects. So the downward voiding wind, the upward moving wind, the equally abiding wind, the pervading wind, and the 5 branch winds are all gross internal winds. The life-supporting wind has 3 levels: gross, subtle, and very subtle. Most mounted winds of conceptual thoughts are gross, life-supporting winds. The mounted winds of the minds of white appearance, red increase, black near attainment are subtle, life-supporting winds. And the mounted winds of the mind of clear light is a very subtle, life-supporting wind. The life-supporting wind is very intense. If a defiled life-supporting wind manifests, negative conceptual thoughts will develop. But if life-supporting wind is purified, negative conceptual thoughts will be pacified. All meditations use the mental awareness, and the mounted wind of mental awareness is necessarily a life-supporting wind. Each of the 5 winds of the sense powers and the gross life-supporting winds has 2 parts. A wind that develops the specific type of awareness, and a wind that moves the awareness towards its object. The 12 winds normally flow through the right and left channels and are the principal objects to be purified by means of Vajra recitation, as explained in Tantric Grounds and Path and the essence of Vajrayana. If we want to overcome distractions, it is very important to cause these 12 winds to enter, abide, and dissolve within the central channel. Whew. So that was the Appendix IV, an explanation of inner winds. And so we got to a little bit of the introduction, a little bit of what is our mind, how our mind is able to move, and now the gross, subtle, and very subtle minds. From the point of view of its different levels, the mind is divided into 3, the gross, subtle, and very subtle. During our waking life, we normally use our winds, such as the eye awareness, through which we can see things, ear awareness, through which we can hear sounds, nose awareness, through which we can smell, tongue awareness, through which we can taste, body awareness, through which we can experience tactile objects, and mental awareness, through which we can strongly think, I and mine. These awarenesses are gross minds because they are relatively easy to recognize. Without these awarenesses, we cannot communicate with others and we cannot perform our daily activities. However, these awarenesses are mistaken awarenesses. They perceive inherently existent objects which do not exist. Inherently existent objects which do not exist. And therefore, they cause us to experience suffering. For example, when our mental awareness thinks I or me, through perceiving either our body or mind, we mistakenly perceive our body or mind to be ourself. This is a hallucination, and because of this, When our body is sick, we think, I am sick. When our body is old, we think, I am old. And when our mind experiences suffering or pain, we think, I am suffering or I am in pain. Because of this hallucination, we experience suffering and problems throughout our life and in our life after life without end. This is our normal, painful situation. Understanding this, we should develop renunciation, sincere wish to liberate ourselves permanently from this hallucination by realizing the true nature of things, the emptiness of all phenomena. Now let's look at the subtle mind. During sleep, while we are dreaming, we use the subtle mind, such as dream eye awareness, ear awareness, nose awareness, tongue awareness, body awareness, and mental awareness, to which we experience the appearance of various kinds of dream things. These appearances are mistaken appearances, in the same way that our waking appearances are mistaken appearances. Buddha says, you should know all phenomena are like dreams. Dream awarenesses are called subtle minds because they are difficult to recognize, because the appearances in our dreams and during our waking life are all mistaken appearances and hallucinations. Our normal activities, both in dreams and while we are awake, have no real meaning. So we should think, what is the real meaning of our human life? The very subtle mind is so-called because it is extremely difficult to recognize. Without very subtle mind, we wouldn't have no life at all, because our gross and subtle minds cannot hold our life. This is because they are only temporary minds and very unstable. They suddenly rise and quickly disappear, like clouds in the sky. Therefore, only our very subtle mind holds our life continuously through day and night, and in life after life, until we become an enlightened Buddha. When we become a Buddha, our very subtle mind will become a Buddha's mind. Our very subtle inner wind will become a Buddha's body. Our very subtle mind, or continuous reciting mind, is therefore our Buddha nature. Since our very subtle inner wind, or continuously reciting body, will never die, we have a deathless body that is our own body. In truth, our present body is a part of our parents' bodies, and so it belongs to our parents and not to us. A very subtle mind, our Buddha nature, is very precious, like a priceless jewel. But we cannot recognize it unless we engage in special methods for recognizing it that the Buddha explained in his highest Yoga Tantra teachings. These special methods are the meditations on the central channel, the indestructible drop, the indestructible wind, and mind. Through these meditations, we can gather and dissolve our inner winds into the central channel. When all our inner winds completely dissolve into the central channel through the force of meditation, all our gross and subtle minds will dissolve, and our very subtle mind will naturally manifest, when we will then be able to recognize it through our own experience. When our very subtle mind manifests through the inner winds, dissolving into the central channel, this manifests very subtle mind is called clear light. It is so called because it is a clear perception in an inner light. Thus, whenever our very subtle mind manifests, it is clear light. Normally, for ordinary beings, this very subtle mind manifests only during sleep and at the end of death process. But highest Yoga Tantra practitioners cannot manifest their very subtle mind during meditation. But highest Yoga Tantra practitioners can manifest their very subtle mind during meditation by dissolving inner winds into the central channel through the force of meditation. This is the clear light of realization. There are three different clear lights: the clear light of sleep, the clear light of death, the clear light of realization. So when we are in deep sleep, our gross and subtle inner winds and minds naturally dissolve into the central channel. And as a result, our very subtle mind manifests. This manifests very subtle mind is the clear light of sleep. However, normally we cannot recognize it because during deep sleep, our memory is unable to function. At the time of death, when we experience death, our inner winds naturally dissolve into the central channel. First, our gross minds will dissolve and cease, and only the subtle mind remains. Then our mind becomes more and more subtle until finally, when all inner winds have completely dissolved into the central channel, a very subtle mind was manifest. This manifest, very subtle mind is clear light of death. Its nature is great bliss. It's extremely peaceful, and it perceives only emptiness, the mere absence of all phenomena. Normally, we cannot recognize it because at that time, our memory cannot function. So, well, we get a good overview of how to understand the mind and the three. What is it? The three types of minds? Is it? The gross, subtle, and very subtle. The different levels of mind. And we looked at try to figure out the differences between the newer edition, How to Understand the Mind, which came out in 2014, and the older version called Understanding the Mind, which was first composed way back in 1993. Right? And it came out again in 1997. So this one, this 93-97 version, and this is the updated. It rearranged things and it added maybe 60 pages of the Lamrim. The lower scope, middling scope, and higher scope. And this book, How to Understand the Mind, referred to Appendix IV of modern Buddhism. So to help us understand the inner winds. So as you can see, it's a little complicated. It's like anatomy of the very subtle mind and winds. Very subtle winds. Okay, so I hope this helps. Takes a little meditation and thinking about it, and some memorization and practice. So I dedicate this, the little merit I accumulated, to all my kind mothers and to all my holy beings, to the 5 Buddha families, and to Buddha Vajradhara, Buddha Vajrasattva, Buddha Manjushri, Vajrayogini. Who's that? I'm not sure. Maybe it's Buddha Heruka and his consort, Vajrayogini, Chakrasambhara, and Zambala, and Om Mani Padme Hum. Om. Ah. Hum. Okay, thank you very much.